Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Paid Search Podcast, the #1 Facebook army, or YouTube. Just kidding. I would never sponsor Amazon on my show, Chris, and I'll never call the YouTube audience an army or a fam.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is
I respect them enough to know why they're here. They want to learn about AdWords.
We've made it out of our 20s. I don't think I need a bro force to follow me around at this point. I'm good. Thanks, guys. You can
All right,
just
Chris,
be
we've
watchers.
got the after show on YouTube. We've got the main podcast. We haven't started the recording part of our show. This is the pre-show, Chris. I'm branding it. This is the pre-Paid Search Podcast.
This is where we need to get. This is where we get our chit chat out of the way for those listeners that don't want to deal with the chit chat and during the podcast.
I think that's a good option because no one's forcing anyone to watch the YouTube. We got the podcast.
Yep.
So I got more questions for you, Chris. So how was the Warped Tour?
It was hot. Music, a couple bands I saw were a bit disappointing.
Did you see Futuristic?
Yes, I did.
Did you? Yeah.
I walked past as I was going to another band to see, and it was like I thought, It was not what I was expecting. But
have fun with your bros?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No bros weekend?
I did have fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I wore ear protection, lots of sunscreen, very safe. Probably one of the older people there at Warped Tour, but I still like the music. So
nice. Well, thanks for asking, but I spent my weekend working on client accounts, making them better and better.
Oh gosh.
So, Chris,
come on.
You ready to get this party started?
Of course, yeah. Sure, Mr. Professional. No tie, by the way.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, you start. No.
Yes. Welcome back to episode number 66 of the Paid Search Podcast. My name is Jason Rothman. I'm here as always with my great co-host, one of the greatest AdWords managers on the planet. If you combine what you know about your business with what he knows about Google AdWords, you're going to get great AdWords results and your business is going to grow. Chris, I'm not here to talk about what you're wearing or not wearing. I'm not here to talk about what's tight and what's not tight because it's got nothing to do with what we're talking about today. And frankly, it's been brought to my attention that's unprofessional. So I'm just here to say thank you for doing the show with me. It's an honor to be able to talk AdWords with you every week. It really is. You're one of the best. And thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate your professionalism and keeping the chit chat at a minimum because our listeners are here for the business. And if you want the fun, if you want the pleasure, check out our YouTube video. We chatted up a little bit on YouTube before we start, but we're here for business. People are driving. They want to get through traffic and get to work or get home. And they only have a certain amount of time. We got to get through this stuff. We got some good stuff today. Jason, although he called me out and says, I'm a phenomenal AdWords guy. Jason's got lots of information that, I don't dabble in. And he came up with this idea. Let's talk about Google Analytics and AdWords. And honestly, Jason, as we've kind of discussed ahead of time, just kind of feeling out what the show is going to be about. Jason knows quite a bit about and dives a bit more into analytics than I do. So I'm going to be learning about how analytics can be used in AdWords and beyond my comfort level. So I'm excited to learn, Jason, how you use it, how it can benefit AdWords, how it can benefit for the purpose of driving traffic and conversions for your clients and our listeners.
Right on. And, you're hyping it up here like I'm going to have some secret analytics things I do. I really don't, Chris.
I think you do. I think everyone's going to be blown away.
Well,
right?
I hope so. I'm just trying to cover all bases here, Chris. We talk about AdWords, but we're basically building the world's biggest book on Google AdWords.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And how can you not talk about Google Analytics? You're like the guy who goes on a double date with your wife's friend and her friend's husband, and you talk with the guy during dinner, and you never ask about him again because you're self-centered and focused on your own word. And I know you're that guy, Chris.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm the guy who goes, hey, what's up with Nacho? That's one of my girlfriend's friend's husbands. We
Nacho.
Nacho. We went over there once, Andrea and Nacho, if they're listening, we went over there. We had a great time. We bonded. I asked about him, but I never get to see him now. So I asked about him. I want to follow up. And analytics is like AdWords' wife's friend's husband. Like, it's related. You don't have to deal with it if you don't want to, but if you're a good guy like I am, if you're curious, you see how analytics can work with AdWords. You get that analogy, Chris?
What a beautiful illustration. I was wondering where we were going, but I like that. It makes sense.
Are you that guy or not? Will you ask about your wife's friend's husband?
I hate chit chat. I hate small talk. So you're absolutely right. If we're going to talk, either we're going to be best friends and we're going to talk, or we're going to just skip the whole thing and eat in silence. So yeah.
Wow. Whew. Well, if anyone wants to go on a double date with me and my girlfriend,
you'll have more fun.
I'll talk it up. So, Chris, let's get into Google Analytics. Let's first talk about what's going to make you mad because you don't think people need to know it, but they do need to know it. And some people don't know about it. What is Google Analytics, Chris?
Google Analytics is it's the thing that you set up after every website is built. Nowadays, let's go back a couple of years. A couple of years ago, you had to pay for analytical tracking on your website, right? Back before email was free for everyone. Back before GPS was free for everyone. All right, you hear that, millennials? There was a time when you had to pay $400 for a little device that would tell you to turn left or right. That was not always free. Google has provided an amazing software that in a day and age of free internet software and services, this should have cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month, a year, for something like this. So I mean, analytics used to be a small service to be able to track how many clicks you got. Now it can completely transform the way that you interpret your website data. You can make business decisions with this software. So it's phenomenal. Basically, in order to use it, you sign up in the same way that you sign up for Gmail, and you put a piece of code on your website. The small piece of JavaScript goes on your website. And is it JavaScript? I might be wrong there, but anyway, a piece of
script.
Okay, a piece of script on your code on your website, and watch the magic happen. Watch the charts and the graphs and all these things pop up, and it's really interesting what you can see, especially, and this is what we're here for today, when you connect it with AdWords.
Right. Exactly. So it basically tells you about your traffic, how long they're on your site, what pages they view, and beyond that, Chris, what actions they take on your site. So the first way that you can use Google Analytics with AdWords, when you link the two together, and Chris, let's just get this out of the way because I see you, I see me, I don't see Walt. We're not here to talk about e-commerce. But if you do run e-commerce campaigns, and a lot of you out there do, Chris, I honestly run into e-commerce companies that don't have e-commerce tracking set up on analytics. What it tells you guys, it tells you what items are ordered, how many of them, how much sales you had, and it tells you where those sales came from. So it tells you you got 40 clicks from Facebook today, and they bought $5,000 worth of items, and these are the exact items they bought. And then it tells you people came from AdWords, and these are the keywords they searched in AdWords, and this is what they bought. This was organic Google search data. This was direct traffic. If you do email campaigns, you can tell exactly who's coming from email. And it tells you what people bought and how much sales you got. So Chris, why don't you talk about how, and I think you have some clients who do this, how you can link AdWords to analytics, and then how that e-commerce data, especially sales, shows up in AdWords.
I'm here.
We froze a little bit, but hey, Chris, we're rolling with the punches. Okay,
I'm here. I'm here.
My question was, how do you, when you tie analytics to AdWords and you're looking at e-commerce data, tell people about the gold mine that you can see in your AdWords account when you import the e-commerce sales data.
Right. So there's always a question when it comes to e-commerce about, I generated 15 sales, 15 conversions. Am I making money here? That's the question that you can definitively answer as an e-commerce AdWords user compared to a service provider. If you sell a widget, and the widget has a certain dollar amount that is a transaction value that's done over the internet, you should be importing the transaction value, because when it comes down to it, you should immediately know how much did I spend in AdWords and how much did I sell on my website. If those two numbers are not over 1, you are in the red. You are losing money. You're spending more in AdWords than you're making on your website. So it has to be over 1.0. 1.0 is breaking even. 1.1 means you made money off of that campaign over that time period.
Right. And you'll be able to see, like if you sell tennis shoes, you'll be able to see the keyword Nike basketball shoes brought in X amount of conversions. You'll have a cost per conversion, say $60, and then you'll see the sale value per conversion, $80. Or you see your total cost, $700, and you'll see your total value imported from e-commerce and analytics, say $1,500. So it really, if you're doing e-commerce, it's a no-brainer. And Chris, if you're doing e-commerce and you get that tracking, you can be really, really good at AdWords because you get all that perfect data and you know exactly how much revenue you're bringing in for each click and each keyword.
Yeah, and just to be specific, I don't want to just throw words out and stuff, but specifically the metric you're looking for. If you're like, well, that's interesting, I want to know what Chris is talking about. What's that 1.0, 1.1, 2.4 number that I know I'm in the black or if I'm in the red? The number you're looking for is value over cost. You want to know if you are there's a column in there in AdWords that you can look at, and if you're importing that transaction data from Google Analytics, that means you're going to want to look at your value, conversion value over your cost, and you want that number to be above 1. So there's your tip of the day.
And if it's working and if it is above 1, Chris, then budget shouldn't be a question.
Yeah.
The
Keep
question
going.
should be how can I put the most money possible into this money machine?
Yeah.
So Chris, that's e-commerce. If anyone's interested in that, you can call Walt. Now, Chris, let's go back to our world. Goal tracking, service companies, lead generation. We all know the ways you can track leads from Google AdWords. You can track website phone calls. You can track mobile call extension. You can put conversion code on a thank you page. However, Chris, here's where analytics can come in a couple ways where you can track these lead forms, okay? There's a scenario where people aren't taking people to or here's a scenario for you. They are taking people to a thank you page when they complete the form. However, they don't have the ability to add more code to their website. Say it's a client that's not very website sophisticated. He outsources to some huge company and he doesn't even know who makes changes to his website. If you have access to the Google Analytics, if you're the business owner or managing his account, you can set up a goal, a destination goal in Google Analytics and say, call it a goal completion. That's the conversion word for analytics. They call it goals. Call it a goal completion when someone views the /thanks page or whatever the thank you page is. And the only way you can go to that page is if you fill out the form. So you know the lead form was completed and the goal happened. So that's how you track it in analytics, and you don't have to put that conversion code on the thank you page. Then what you can do, you can link analytics to AdWords. You can go into AdWords and import the goal from analytics into AdWords to show up as a conversion in AdWords. So that's how you do lead form tracking if you don't have the ability to put code on a thank you page. Chris, you said you don't really run into this often. I do. Everyone knows I work with a lot of movers. Let me repeat that, as silly as that sounds. Everyone knows that I work with a lot of movers.
Yes.
And these guys, they're great at moving, Chris. A lot of them are really, really bad at websites.
Websites, yeah.
And I say, hey, when someone fills out your lead form, it goes to a thank you page. Here's the code, slap it on that thank you page. And they write back and they say, Jason, did we get calls today? Like they're not even going to acknowledge the request.
Yeah.
So
like, what? That was Greek. I'm going to ignore that.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is I go, okay, no worries. Can I get access to your analytics that one of those huge website companies set up for you 10 years ago? And they go, oh yeah, sure. And then I can set up the goal myself. So Chris, that takes care of one issue. The other one is, how do you track a lead form if the person is not being taken to a thank you page after a completion. If they're kept on the page. Now, before the show, just so everyone knows, here's how we generate ideas in podcast episodes of the Paid Search Podcast. I spent a lot of time and effort coming up with ideas, and then Chris just takes off his tight yoga pants and takes a dookie all over him. So I'm like, Chris, let's talk about analytics. He's like, dude, who doesn't have analytics on their site? Like, dude, who needs analytics when you have AdWords conversion tracking? But Chris, I know you've run into this before, and all our listeners have. What happens when you can't slap thank you page code on a thank you page because the thank you page doesn't exist? When someone fills out the form, it just does a little loading thing and says thanks right on that same page. Mm-hmm. Explain how Google Analytics is useful and the only option in this case.
Well, Jason, I would explain this, but I wish you wouldn't put that in my lap, because honestly, I do it in AdWords. And I'm gonna put the cart before the horse here, because there's an on-click tracking in AdWords that I use. I completely skip analytics for that purpose.
Fool me? Are you trying not to? Chris, I'm here to learn, brother. As
you
much
tell
as I
me
talk
how to
at
do
the
it.
beginning of the show, I'm humble. I really am humble for as much as I talk. I don't know how to do this in AdWords. Are you saying you know how to do this?
There is a way to. You're serious? You don't know how to? Are you pulling my chain here? It's essentially
I'm pulling something, but I'm not pulling your chain, Chris.
Well, you essentially set up a conversion, go through the whole step, assign, give it a name, tell it whether you want transaction data, tell it once or every one, all the details of the typical conversion setup, and then you hit save or done or whatever that thing is. And then on the next page at the very bottom where it says copy and paste this code, look just above that, there's a tiny little drop down arrow that you can click. On that little tiny drop down arrow, you can change the conversion tracking type from page load to on click. And
what happens then?
That changes the code, and then you can send it to your web developer, and they can place that on click tracking on a button, on an email, on whatever call to action you have that you want to track as a click. So no longer do you have to worry about a thank you page loading. You can do all of that in AdWords. So I hate to
Chris, let's get the camera back on me.
There we
Chris,
go. Yeah.
If it's not there, you didn't, Chris,
you didn't know that?
You schooled me, Chris.
Yeah,
this is why we do the Paid Search Podcast, to learn. I had no idea about that. So let me tell everyone the way I've been doing it.
Okay.
Is you go into analytics, you set up a goal called an event goal, and you track the goal, you track clicks on a button. And then people put that code on the button, and then in analytics, it tracks a goal when people click on the button. You import that goal to AdWords. It's the same end result. I had no idea.
It's essentially hidden. It's complete. Wow. It's impossible to see. There's no indication that button can be clicked. It's a very small little triangle shape that shows that something can happen here. That there can be a click down on that little feature there. So I mean, if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't feel any shame for that, because I discovered it accidentally.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm honestly going to use that all the time now. I'm feeling a little self-conscious.
It's okay. So it's okay. These are still good tips.
No. The only way, seriously, because you said it's super hidden, and it's got to be.
Yeah.
The only way anybody would know that is if you've been spending like 30 years around Google AdWords and pay-per-click, even though it's existed for 15. Like you say you're 42.
I was there.
I have no idea how old you might be 60, bro. Like the only reason you know this is because you're old. I'm young.
Yeah.
I've got my whole life ahead of me. I'm very successful. Thank you for telling me about this.
You are feeling insecure. You're just okay. Let's move on to point number 3.
That's so fundamental. No, and give me another piece of credit here. You've never talked about that before on the show.
I rarely tell anyone that it's there, but because I didn't realize it was such an unknown feature.
I had never heard of that, Chris. I always went to analytics.
Yeah, sorry. That's it's there, and it's great. I use it. I just used it today for a client that did not have a thank you page. So managers out there, agencies that are listening, Simple solution. A client does not have a thank you page. Use the OnClick system within AdWords.
Beautiful. Now let me ask you one more question about that. Do you run into so slapping conversion code on a thank you page? A monkey could do it. Super easy, right? Do you run into any problems? I run into this with event goals and analytics every now and then on the button. It seems like people have trouble adding that conversion code. Do you run into any trouble, or if you send it to an agency kind of website people, they know what they're doing?
No, I just recently had an issue with someone saying, what URL should I return to Google? Should it be a hashtagged, success, or should it be this other thing? And I was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. And, and it worked. So no, it seems to be just as simple as the thank you page load.
Ooh, I love this podcast. All right. So Chris, now we've talked about the hardest conversion tracking, e-commerce, the dollar amount. We've talked about the softer, but still pretty hardcore tracking, lead forms and phone calls. Let's talk about a little bit of the softer side of tracking. Let me give you an example because I love examples. I have a client who has Google Analytics on their website, but the idea of getting them, they're in the medical field, to put code on their buttons or on a thank you page, that ain't going to happen, Chris. It's just not going to happen. They don't manage their website. They don't know who did, basically, and it's been years, and it's an old website. But I still want conversions to go off of to know what's working or not. So this is where tracking AdWords traffic data comes into play. And I track things like bounce rates, I track pages per visit, and I track time on site. And I've set up my own goals in analytics. And I said, call it a goal if someone spends more than 3 minutes. Call it a goal if they view more than 3 pages. And then I import those goals into AdWords, and that helps me know whether or not we're getting conversions or not, even though I don't know if they're lead forms or phone calls. Someone who spends 3 minutes on the site is much more likely to turn into a phone call or a lead form or to have done that than someone who spent 10 seconds on the site. So this is how you can track. If you don't have the ability to track lead forms or phone calls, AdWords really works well when you get conversion data. So still track something. And setting up your own traffic goals and analytics and importing them into AdWords as conversions, it gets the job done for me, Chris, and the client's happy with the performance. Now, I believe Analytics provides their own version of this called Smart Goals. Why don't you take a minute to talk about that?
Yeah, we've talked about it before in a previous podcast. Basically, my thoughts on the SMART goals is I think it's a template to start off with. I'm not a big fan of the low bar that the analytics system sets for the SMART goals. So if you find, pause the podcast or just make a note. Go in and make sure you're not running SMART goals as a true conversion in your analytics or AdWords. If you are, change those basic settings because the bar is set pretty low, and you think I'm in the elite top status. I'm doing a 15% conversion rate. Make sure that those conversions are not low bar SMART goals that are set, because I've found in the past that they're a bit too easy, because it's like a SMART goal that's set up. I'm not sure what the metrics are for it, but it might be if someone doesn't bounce and they spend over 30 seconds, that might be a SMART goal that's already set up.
Rule number 1 on this show, Chris, between co-hosts that respect each other, is not to ask questions that the other one doesn't know, and not to expose the other one for them not knowing something as fundamental as conversion tracking, because we never do that to each other. Mm-hmm. But since you did it to me, let me do it to you.
I knew it.
I don't ever go into SMART goals. I don't know exactly what they are. I have an idea of what they probably are. But I don't know the exact metrics. Do you?
No.
Okay. But you're saying, based on everything you know about when you let AdWords and analytics and Google take control of stuff, you don't think their SMART goal is as hardcore as my manual SMART goal, we could call it, of spending 3 minutes on the site?
Correct. It's essentially what you described, but the bar is set lower. If you say 4 minutes plus 3, viewed 3 different pages, theirs might be 30 seconds and they viewed 2 pages.
They're going to be pretty liberal with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And I should do my homework here, and we'll look into that. And if anyone wants to push back and talk about SMART goals, send us an email if you're having success with them. We'd love to hear it on paidsearchpodcast.com. So Chris, as we wrap up here, there's a few more kind of cool things I like to do in Google Analytics that you can't do in AdWords for some of these things. I like to look at the analytics. By the way, everybody, when you do link analytics to AdWords, you can add bounce rate, pages per visit, time spent on site as columns to AdWords and get that data. But I don't believe you can do that, Chris, at the device page right now. And so you can't see what is my mobile bounce rate, what is my desktop bounce rate, how much time do mobile people spend versus desktop, how many pages do they view. You say before the podcast, you said this is not useful because you're a hardcore AdWords guy. You're an AdWords man, and you go on conversions. But as I explained earlier, sometimes you don't have lead form conversions. It really is useful, Chris, to go in there and see, okay, is my mobile bounce rate like 95% and my desktop is like 50? And my time spent on site from mobile like 10 seconds and my desktop is like 2 minutes and 30 seconds? I love breaking down that traffic data at the device level from AdWords inside of analytics. Do you see the value there, my friend?
Oh, I do. I do. Because you can certainly go in and segment your conversion data by device and say, 13 of my conversions were mobile and 2 of them were desktop, and make the decision that it's a better solution for me to push mobile. But if you look at the Google Analytics data within analytics outside of AdWords, you might find that actually time on site is really good. Maybe they're converting a different way. If you have a storefront, maybe they're coming in. Maybe you don't have maybe you're not tracking phone numbers. So maybe a bunch of people are dialing the phone number from the desktop rather than mobile phones who just fill out a form. So there could be a lot of information there that would fill the full picture before you decided to block one device entirely simply based on conversion tracking.
That's a great point, and you basically verbalize what's in my head better than I did. It gives you a fuller picture to help you make decisions. So it's not everything. You obviously want to go with conversions, lead form conversions, calls more, but it gives you a fuller picture here. So Chris, the last one here, Chris, and this is just kind of a fun one because it validates what we say all the time. And I'm going to take a shot. It can validate Facebook data too. Okay, let's be honest, because someone's got to push back. If everyone's just taking it, we're here to push back a little bit, okay? So what you can do in analytics is you can look at your AdWords data, and you can look at your search campaign and your display campaign if you're running a display campaign, and see the wild differences that come with bounce rates and time on site.
Wild is an understatement. Absolutely.
Okay. First spring break when she's 19.
Wild. That kind of wild. Sure.
Yeah, that kind of
exactly.
Wild, yeah.
That kind of wild. Yeah. I mean, I hear arguments all the time about, look at our cost per click. Our cost per click is really low that this one agency was getting us or this other guy was getting us. And I say, well, sure, they were splitting your cost per click between display and search. And said, well, display's good. Look at these placements that we're getting. We're on like New York Times, we're on this or that. And if they don't, let's say they don't even have conversion data, they're just looking at their placement and their cost per click and how much value they're getting per traffic. Jason, all it comes down to is just take a screenshot of that time on site and bounce rate between search and display. Yeah. And there's no argument.
Let's put a number on it. Let's take remarketing out here, Chris, and we're just doing placements, keywords, whatever kind of display targeting besides remarketing. What kind of bounce rates are we seeing here?
90%, 95%. Absolutely.
I've tried campaigns 99%. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the best I've seen is typically 90%. 95 and higher is typical. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to be clear, we're talking about display campaigns here versus
and not remarketing.
Yet. Not remarketing, and we're talking about versus search.
And Chris, let's
healthy search. What's a healthy search
50,
bounce rate?
60, 70.
Yeah, I mean 70 should
really
be
healthy.
70 should be easy to get. You should be able to get 70. 50 is you're doing a bang up job. I mean,
and 10 or 15%, something's wrong with your analytics.
Yeah, 10-15%. That's some BS numbers, and I'm never going to believe anybody that has a 10%.
70 is good. That's the threshold. 50 is great. Now, Chris, let's take one final shot before we sign off here. A lot of talk about Facebook these days. We had the great David Shapiro on the show. He explained how he's getting leads. I'm getting some leads from Facebook, believe it or not, Chris, for my own company. It works, but I would reckon to bet the bounce rate in analytics from Facebook campaigns is going to be way higher than Google search. Someone prove us wrong. So
don't pull it. No, I don't want to talk about no. Don't, David.
Do the Facebook podcast.
No, put the email down, David, because don't prove us wrong. I'm reneging on that invitation. No, right. I don't want to argue about it anymore.
No,
this is my podcast.
This is my podcast. Chris, they can go send us in data. Like it goes about their emails.
Go ahead. Email me. I'll delete it. That's fine.
All right. Frosty today, ladies and gentlemen. He's frosty. So, Chris, let's close up here. I would say, Chris, we're a little over a year in. I'm happy with the results from the show. I think it's doing good things for us.
Oh, no.
And then I also think people are benefiting from it. And that's validated with our iTunes reviews. That's kind of the metric we go on to gauge success here.
Yes.
Really helps the show. And a man or a woman, can't prejudge.
Don't assume their gender. Yeah.
Named Isaac Maurice. And I'm not going to say anything else. Named Isaac Maurice. He left us a review. I saw it last night, Chris. It made my night, honestly. Yeah. I had that little warm, tingly feeling that you get with every review. This one touched me. Mm-hmm. You know why, Chris? He started off here. I'm going to read our iTunes review of the week. He said, yes.
Yeah. Well, you can see it's a Jason fan. Absolutely.
This is the best Google. He kind of took a little passive-aggressive shot at us, Chris. He said, this is the best Google search advertising podcast. Well, not overall. No, not overall AdWords. I don't like that word search. We talked about display.
Search advertising, Google search. There's only one Google search advertising.
I know. Okay, I hear you. Maybe he wasn't taking a shot. Maybe I'm a little on edge because I didn't know about conversions.
All right, come on. Okay, all right, let's go.
I'm a 20-something PPC specialist, fresh, with 5 months of experience. With this, I feel like I have at least 2 years of experience. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
The podcast provides not only value, but also the entertainment due to Chris.
What?
And Jason's chemistry on mic.
Oh.
No complaints about the audio. Again, no one's saying anything about the audio.
And for that, I appreciate Isaac. I appreciate Chris that because I'm the audio guy and I know very little about it. So any listeners out there that have some tips, even if they are negative, I will take them because I'm trying to learn how to make this a better sounding podcast.
Yep.
But anyway.
Keep spreading the knowledge, Pepper. Love the show so much. I'm subscribed on YouTube too. Isaac Maurice, thank you very much for the review.
Thank you.
Those help a ton. We are moving up in the rankings, Chris. I believe we are number 10 now.
Hey.
If you search AdWords in iTunes under podcasts, and we're at 20 ratings. Let's make a push. Let's push people. Let's get to 25. So that's it. That's it.
Get Chris. The tote bag. If you review now, you're in the running for a tote bag. We're going to do a drawing, aren't we? We're doing a tote bag drawing. I think
we're going to send you out a free tote bag. We're going to send you out a free windbreaker. No need to send in your address. Don't worry about that. We got you.
It's in the mail.
It's on the way. It's
on the way.
It has shipped, and we're waiting on the carrier. So, Chris, that's it, buddy. That's our 66th episode. If you'll indulge me, I have a little YouTube content for you. Love to get your take on some things. We also have a YouTube channel that is growing rapidly. And Chris, I'm going to throw this out there and look at your facial reaction. We are getting demand to live stream the show on YouTube.
No, we're not.
And I'm all open for it, everybody. But
no, we're not.
Chris is shutting it down, everybody.
No, because you know what, everybody? This first and foremost is a podcast, and we are not here to entertain by sight. We are here to feed your ears. And Chris, and don't forget, you people that are listening with your ears, we're not going to start live broadcasting this and making you feel like you're missing out on the show. This is all about an audio. And I'm not going to forget you guys. You guys are the original.
If it's not about the video, then why are you looking so good?
Because I didn't like the
I got
results.
nothing else to say, Chris.
I didn't like the
Shut us
results
out.
on our search page. Like whenever you looked at our YouTube channel, I was like, I looked really bad. I
You're
needed to.
so vain. So everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for. Oh, he's gonna hit me. If he was near me, he'd hit me. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
We got a good one. I'm gonna say now, Chris. I'm gonna commit to it. We got a great debate.
Oh, I'm excited.
We'll be back next Monday with the great debate. Thanks for listening.